All the recommendations in this short video are backed by extensive research evidence. If you want to know more about any of the steps that we cover, then please do contact us directly. You'll also find at the end of the video details of a journal article that you may find useful in providing further information. Okay, so here's how it goes. The first point is to be concise. Short, clearly worded questions will get you much more reliable answers, but also make it interesting. Have some questions towards the beginning of the questionnaire that really get to the heart of what the respondent wants to tell you. Keep questionnaires short and to the point. Don't be tempted to think, well, while we're asking them about this, can't we just ask them about that as well? If your questionnaire gets too long, then your respondent's attention and commitment will wane. And if you've got some very important questions buried towards the end of the questionnaire, you won't be able to trust the results that they give you. Always use words that your respondents will understand and would naturally use themselves. If you use over-complex language in either the instructions or the questions or the response options, you again won't be able to trust the results that come back. It's a very good idea to pre-test any questionnaire with a small group of the audience that it's intended for before you actually administer it. Think carefully about the order of questions. Research shows that the way we answer one set of questions is closely determined by the questions that immediately preceded it. So for example, if you ask a section on facilities, and that's immediately followed by overall recommendation questions, you'll find that that question is closely correlated to issues concerning facilities. For that reason, it's a good idea to ask general questions before going on to specifics. Avoid using terms in either the questions or the response options that are open to wide interpretation. Now, research shows that terms like frequently or often are widely differently interpreted by different respondents. You're much better using terms that have a very precise meaning, like once a week, twice a week, or you can use terms like always or never, where the interpretation is much more precise and much more regular. There's a bit of a myth in questionnaire design that says never use odd-numbered scales. People will automatically get dragged to the middle option. In fact, this isn't true. You're more likely to distort the results that you get if you don't provide a middle option, if that's what the respondents actually want to tell you. Watch out for double negatives. There's a very common question structure which is known as a Likert scale. That's where you're given a prompt and you're asked to either strongly agree, or right through to strongly disagree with that prompt. Now, if your prompt itself is in the negative terminology, let's say teachers don't consult with learners, if you try to agree with that question, you have to say, I strongly disagree with a negative question. It gets very convoluted and it's confusing. You couldn't trust the responses. If you're attaching a scale or labels to the response options, you need to make sure that those make sense. For example, if you're giving a numbered rating, that really does need to run from low to high, say marks out of 10 from 0 up to 10. That's what people will expect to see. Research does show that people cope best where these options are clearly labelled. So for example, good, very good, something like that. However, there's also contrasting research that shows that we get most accurate answers with quite a wide range of options. And in practice, it's almost impossible to provide clear labels for all the points on a 10-point scale. It either gets very convoluted, or you end up with very subjective terminology, and we're back to the problems we discussed earlier. Now, we've just mentioned that one of the most useful scales you can use is a rating out of 10. If you're doing that, don't forget 0. The reason I say that is that most people think that if you have a scale of 1 to 10, the midpoint is 5. But of course it isn't. It would be 5.5. And you may get an artificial clustering around 5. So use a 0 to 10 scale and make that clear in the question prompt. It's very tempting when you're designing a questionnaire to put some easy questions at the beginning that everybody can answer. And you'll see a lot of surveys that start with questions about age, gender, maybe ethnicity. Now, there can be a problem with this. If the survey is anonymous and some of the issues covered in it are quite controversial or quite sensitive, This will affect the way that people answer later questions. They'll be worrying that they may be identifiable from those early responses. As a matter of good practice, it's always better to put those sorts of questions at the end of the questionnaire, even if that feels unnatural. I hope you found the ideas in this video useful, but I've only been able to scratch the surface of what makes a really good and well-designed questionnaire. If you want to know more about some of the research studies that influenced our thinking, then you might want to try the article that's shown on screen. Otherwise, please do contact me. I'm always happy to talk to people about questionnaire design.